We are 26a. Right, 10 to 13 lines from the bottom. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 11 lines from the bottom. Last word. Very minute. So we're talking about Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim dispute about the allowance of a idol worshiper to either be a midwife for a Jew or to be to nurse. So Rabbi Meir prohibited. He's very worried about the chance of them killing the baby, and Chachamim said that chance is not significant enough to prohibit it. Minhu, but what about if she gets paid Yehudis mialedes obed Chachamim b'schar? Says here that a Jew can be an idol. She can be a midwife for an idol worshiper, which everyone said was not allowed. But here it says, for a little bit of money, it's going to be permitted, but not for free. So what does that mean? You could do it for a little bit of money or not for free? Rav Yosef, b'schar shari mishum eva. So for money, it's allowed because of eva. Eva is going to be animosity. So it's interesting. We have to know practically, but this idea of animosity seems to continuously come up as a permissibility. Even though things are prohibited, business with idol worshippers are not allowed, with non-Jews are not allowed, animosity can break the rules in some of these things. So over here also, what's going to happen if you're not going to give birth, you're not going to help the idol worshipper, you're going to cause a tremendous amount of animosity. So because of that, it sounds like with payment, then you are allowed to. Now, on this idea of animosity, Sover of Yosef, Lemema of Yosef thought to say, Olude avodat chavim b'shabata b'schar shari mishum eva. So he said, well, what's going to happen? So different Shabbos transgressions are transgressed when giving birth, taking the baby out of the womb, of different Shabbos transgressions, which of course are allowed if the mother's having a baby, because it's a case of it's pikuach nefesh. Her life is at stake. The baby's life is at stake. Of course, we permit it. What's going to happen if they're going to see you doing it on Shabbos, and then when they ask you for your help, you're going to say no? So on Shabbos, that's going to create a lot of animosity. And so if Yosef says, well, maybe if that's the case, you should be allowed to on Shabbos go and give and help them give birth. So Amar Abaye, no, there's not going to be animosity, because basically the name of the game is if you have a good excuse, so then there won't be animosity. There's only animosity if you don't have a good excuse. We're going to see a few cases now like that. So if there's a logical reason why you're not able to do it, then you don't have to be worried about creating animosity, which I'm assuming animosity could lead to worse things. So now, Amar Abaye, Yachol and Meimar law, Didon the Mintri Shabbata Mechalin Alayo Didhu, the low Mintri Shabbata low Mechalinon. So Abaye says that there's not going to be animosity, because the woman could say, or theoretically, this is what would happen. She listen, we who keep Shabbos, so we're allowed to violate Shabbos. But you who don't keep Shabbos, we're not allowed to violate Shabbos for you. So Abaye holds that's enough of a reason that it will put animosity to ease, or won't create animosity. They're going to understand that which we give birth on Shabbos because we keep Shabbos. But you don't keep Shabbos, we can't do that for you. Now, okay, so now we have, I think, 3 cases. So this idea of animosity, Savar of Yosef Lemeimar, what about nursing? Anuke b'schar shari, mishum eva. If you, Jewish lady, are asked to nurse idol worshiper's baby for payment, so then mishum eva. Then because of animosity, because what's going to happen? If you don't nurse the baby, it's going to create animosity. So we need help, and you're not helping us. So Amar Le'abaye, no, you can still get out of it. Why? Yachla Lemeimar. So the lady could say, "Ipnu be'ina linsuve." If she's a single lady, she can say that I have to get married, and sounds like I don't have time to go nurse your baby. I have to get married. However, and is she? If she's a married lady, so lokam is damna ba'ape gavra. It sounds like nursing someone else's child is going to make her more disgusting in front of her own husband. So Yeah, is that no?
Yeah, but if she's not married.
No, if she's not married, she'll say, I have to go get married. I don't have time every day to nurse a baby for the next 2 years or whatever it is.
She couldn't possibly marry.
Well, how could she nurse if she's
single? She didn't have a baby.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. That's a good point. What if she was married once and divorced?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jules, good point.
Right.
Yeah. Good point. And if she's married, she'll say that's going to cause a certain level of disgust in front of her husband, which she doesn't want to do, and therefore, so these are two different logical ways that a Jewish lady can get out of nursing the idol worship her child, and it won't create animosity. So, okay, one more. Savar of Yosef Lememar, the Haditanya, the Brisa that says Ha'obed Kochavim. So whether you're an idol worshiper or you're a Jew, but you're doing acts consistently that are very bad, like having your animals graze in someone else's field, which is stealing, and you do it a lot, you do it consistently. So the halacha is, if these people are in a pit, you don't have any obligation to lift them out of the pit. Lo mahalin. However, you also have no obligation to put them in the pit. You can't throw them in, but you're not, but you don't have an obligation to take them out. So says Rav Yosef, okay, but if they pay you to get them out and you don't do it, that's going to create animosity. So maybe that's going to be something which is allowed. So maybe that is something which would permit you to remove them from the pit. So Amr le'abaye yachol le'meimarlo. Okay, but here also you could say yachol le'meimarlo kai baria igra. I can't come now. My son is stuck on the roof, and if I don't get him down, he's going to die. So I'm sorry, I have to go. So that's one way to get out of it. Like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Your son's in danger. Goodbye. Or inami nakita le'zimna lebei doar. The government official has me scheduled, like for jury duty, so to speak. If I miss that day, I'm doomed. So I got to go. So those are other ways to get out of this. Animosity. Out of the three cases, the first two I understand there's a prohibition. You cannot help nurse or help give birth to an idol worshiper's son. But I guess here also it's interesting. You can't lift him out. I guess, right? You can't lift him out of the pit. That's also helping him continue in his evil ways. Okay, fine.
But if we pay for these things, it changes it.
But it sounds like only with animosity.
Only with animosity.
Yeah. That's interesting. Without payment, you don't have animosity. Why? I guess they understand that you're not going to do it for free. You got it. Okay. You have to. Yeah. Okay. Tana Rabbi Abo, Commander Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Abo, Tana from Rabbi Yochanan, Ovdei Kochavim Beroy Behem Medako. This that we just said, that an idol worshiper or a Jew who has an animal who continues to graze consistently in other people's fields, lo malin, you don't have to lift them up during the page. The lo marina, we don't put them in either. Aval, and here we go about apostates. Who's an apostate? Who's considered a rebellious, a mummer, a rebellious Jew, which in certain levels they lose some level of sanctity. You wouldn't give them an aliyah for sure, things like that. So aval haminin, apostates, the hamisoros, someone who's moser, someone who gives over Jews to the authorities. Right? A lot of stories from from Europe. That, communities had their mosrim. They had people that would what's the word I'm looking for? They would tell the authorities about the Jew that's doing something wrong. They would snitch. Yeah, they would snitch and give over the Jews over.
Informer.
That's a good word. Informer. That's a good word. The hamumarim, or a mummer is someone who rebels, a renegade. Okay, a rebellious one. These people, moridin, you put them in. You're allowed to put them in below malin, and you don't have to get them up. So now, the idol worshiper and the Jew who's stealing, you don't have to lift them up, and you don't put them in. These three you do. So now, so these three that you do put in. So now, so now, Okay, so what's the difficulty? Oh, nothing. We're just teaching this right now. Okay, so now we're saying Amar Le. So this is all taught from Rabbi Abo in front of Rabbi Yochanan, to which Rabbi Yochanan responds, Ani Shona, I taught the following. L'chol avedas achicha. You have to return a lost object. So it says l'chol avedas achicha, to anybody, any of your brethren that lost their object. The word kol always going to include. Who does kol include? L'rabos es amumar. It's to include a mumar. So it's a funny thing. I'm including a rebellious, the renegade, to return to him a lost object. The at amris moridin, and you're telling me I can put him in the pit. I mean, it's a funny. The guy you're putting in the pit, you wouldn't necessarily return the lost object to. So he says, you're right. Sami mikan mumar, erase mumar, take out mumar. Velishni le kan b'mumar ochel nevelos leteyavon, kan b'mumar ochel nevelos lahachis. There, this is really in the. I think it's the beginning of Sanhedrin. Makes these distinctions. Also, there are two kinds of people who are rebellious. There's one rebellious guy. He just likes non-kosher food. He's not doing it because he hates Hashem. He just has a tremendous desire for cheeseburgers. You know, he cannot stop himself. So that's a mumar l'teyavon. He's doing it to fulfill his own desire, right? The teyavon is like, have a good appetite. When if you're at a restaurant in Israel, it's like bon appetit, basically in Hebrew. So he's a mumar l'teyavon. He's doing it for his own desires, but he's not doing it because he hates Hashem. There's somebody else, the mumar ochel nevelos, the one who eats the non-shechted animals. So that's someone who's lahachis. He just hates Hashem. So the one that you could put into the pit is the one that's like the higher level, mumar lahachis. He just does it out of hate of religion, hate of Judaism, hate of Hashem. The one who has a desire, okay, hey, not a good guy. I don't know if you let him marry your daughter, but he's not someone that you're going to put into a pit, and you still have an obligation to return to him a lost object. Now, so this opinion must hold because savar ochel nevelos lahachis is a minhu. This opinion holds. I guess it's a dispute. It'd be interesting to know like how the halacha comes out about these people. The person who eats nevelos lahachis, apparently this opinion holds he has the same status as an apostate, someone who throws off, rejects all religion. This mumar who hates Hashem or he hates religion, he's doing it just out of anger. So he has the same status as an apostate, and you're allowed to throw them into the pit. The one who has a desire. So Rashi points out that when he doesn't have any meat to eat, he might eat something not kosher. But if he has in front of him kosher and not kosher, he'll choose the kosher meat. Just when not, he has too much desire to eat meat, he'll go and eat the non-kosher meat. But he won't do it if it's kosher and not kosher right in front of him. He'll choose the kosher food. The other guy, though, he'll for sure choose the not kosher food because he hates, that guy. It's always that guy. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Rashi points out that there still are some differences between a min and apostate and a mumar, like a sefer Torah that's written by an apostate you can burn. As opposed to a mumar, you wouldn't do that. It sounds like an apostate, someone who really loses some level of sanctity of being a Jew. He can't imbue sanctity into a sefer Torah. Yeah, that'd be interesting class to have. Halachas of an apostate. For those considering, don't do it. No, yeah, we're gonna throw you into it. No. So okay, so it's an Amaraic statement. A mumar pligi. Okay, so a mumar pligi barav achav ravina. So chad amar lete avon mumar, and lahachis is a min. Okay, so one opinion holds that a someone who rebels out of desire. So when he doesn't have the food available to him, he'll go to the McDonald's. But if he had McDonald's or Dougie's or whatever the J2 pizza, so of course he'll go to the kosher place. So and a mumar lahachis, though, when one opinion held that a mumar lahachis, one who rebelled, has the same status as an apostate. So bechad amar afilu lahachis nami mumar. So one opinion says that even one who rebels, even out of hate, is not going to have the same status as an apostate. And one says, no, out of hate, he does have a similar status to an apostate. Ella ezehu min, zeh Yomi Avodah Zora. So according to him, what is considered an actual apostate? One who actually goes and serves idols. Being a rebellious one out of hate is not enough, but if you go and serve idols, that would be enough. Okay. Now, meisvei achol parush echad o yitosh echad. You eat. A person eats either a mosquito or a flea.
One flea or one
A flea, a
gnat.
mosquito. Yeah. Natch. Okay. So now, oh, so you see here, the Brisa says one who eats these things is considered a mummer. Now, 1 second. Why in the world are you eating a mosquito, a natch? And not out of desire, must be out of hate. They don't taste good. No. Nothing to them. And yet you're going to eat one. Why are you eating one? So it calls you a mummer. You're a rebellious one, not an apostate. You're still considered a rebellious one. The hachatz, obviously the lahachisu, he's doing it out of hate because they don't taste good. Vikatani mummer, and it calls you a mummer. That's a problem with one of the opinions earlier, because he said a mummer out of rebellion has the halacha of an apostate. But here he's remaining, we're still calling him a rebellious one and not an apostate. Says Gemara, well, no. There's still a desire. You know what the desire is? My whole life, when I was a little boy, I said I cannot eat mosquitoes. I'm just so curious. What did they taste like? So, Hassam, you can always answer, Bayi lemitam time of the Yisura. He wanted to taste what Isser tastes like. So, you're right, they don't taste good, but the fact that it's prohibited, you want to taste what does prohibited food taste like. So, that's still enough to be considered a rebellious one. And according to that opinion, and therefore, that's why they're not considered an apostate. So you can always get out of it with that answer. Yeah. Amar Mar, so back to the statement of putting them in the pit, but not taking them out. So isn't that obvious? If you put them in, you sure don't have to take them out, right? That's obvious. So Amar Mar, Moridin, Avalo Malin. Yeah, obviously. Hashta Achute Machdinan, Asuki Mibai. Obviously, if you can lower them into the pit, then there's no novelty of telling me that you cannot remove them from the pit. So we're going to get now different cases where there is a novelty of how you can avoid getting them out of the pit. So Amr of Yosef Archam, Amr of Sheshes, Lo Nitzchi. I don't need it for the obvious case of like pulling the guy out. That's obvious. However, Shim Haisa Ma'ale Bebor. Let's say there was some steps going up in the pit, and the guy's able to get out. So you're allowed to. Migura, you let it go and scrape off those steps, and then now he can't get up. So that's a novelty. Yeah, you would not have known you could do. Yeah. So dinakit le ila the amar lo techas chiyuse ilave, and that's what So dinakit le ila, you should hold an excuse. You should have this and say v'amar lo techus chiyusa ilave. Now, when you're doing this, you're going to cause tremendous animosity. You're undoing. What are you saying? You're saying that you don't want my animal to go through it and fall down those steps. See, it's a good, no pun intended. It's a good cover up. You're covering up this thing because you don't want your animal to go. That's one interpretation. They don't argue. They're just different opinions of how to say it. Rabbi Yosef Dami Travayu. Lo nitzercha, there's no novelty except just to lift them up. The novelty is in the following case. You can put the stone on top of the pit, cover it up. Now the guy can't get out, obviously, there's a big stone on top. And Amar la'avure chiyusei love, I need to pass by. There's a big hole in the street, I gotta cover it over. So people are gonna see, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's not gonna create animosity. And Ravina Amar Shimhaya Sulam Misalko. If there's a ladder in the pit, you could remove the ladder. And Omar Be'ina Lachute Bar Me'igra. My son is stuck on the roof. I need to take this ladder now to get him down. And that's another way to avoid animosity. Okay, now it's interesting. We are jumping to Bris Milah for a while. Yeah. So because can an idol worshiper do a Bris Milah for a Jew? Rav Meir and the Chachamim. He's going to be consistent in his continuous worry. And then from there, we're going to go on to a whole amud of Bris Milah. Yeah, good to know for the next Bris Milah. So, yeah, Tana Rabbanon Yisroel Mol Es Ha'obed Kochavim L'Shum Ger. So the Brisa says a Jew can give the idol worshiper a Bris Milah if he wants to convert. So L'Shum Ger, for the sake of becoming a Ger, so that a Jew could do. La'afuke L'Shum Morana Delo, as opposed to giving a Bris Milah for the sake of his idol, for the sake of his master. So if if they worship some kind of idol that requires them to get circumcised, you can't go assist them to go get circumcised for the sake of their idol. That's again assisting them to do idol worship.
Again, they talk about removing a parasite.
Removing the orla.
Exclude circumcising.
What's a parasite?
Canaanite worship for the sake of parasite. Teaches that it's not
Parasite. Parasite means
bug.
a bug.
Could be a bug. Could be a.
That's all the shumarana means. Oh, you're right. Oh. Yeah, no, you're right. Tolas sheyesh lo barla. So Rashi says there's a kind of worm, a bug that's by his orla, that's there, and you're circumcising him to remove the bug. Okay, good. Thank you for the correction. Yeah. Oh, so why not? Okay, why not? Sounds like just to heal them for free. You can't do, right? Meaning you're healing them. You're taking out this. So to do that just for free, you can't do. Tosa points out, but for money you could because of animosity. Yeah. Okay, good. That's a funny word. I never saw that before. Morana meaning bug. Okay. Okay, fine, good. So that you can't do. Good. So now, now an idol worshiper cannot circumcise a Jew. Reb Meir consistently now, he says, because they're going to potentially kill you. Right? He said she can't help. She can't be a midwife. She can't nurse the baby. If you have other people there at the time of the circumcision, so then that's going to be permitted because we're not worried about him killing you. But if it's just a private bris milah, a coronavirus bris milah, there's no one there, and it's just you and the idol worshiper, that you shouldn't do. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like the father is always going to be. Right? I mean, the kid's not getting there on his own, right? He's only 8 days old, so we're assuming that at least the father's there, but that's not enough. You have to have acherim, others there too. It's interesting. I don't know what's that, father and somebody else. I'm presuming the kid's not by himself. So I would have thought the father himself is enough to see the idol worshiper not kill the kid, but it sounds like you have to have more than that. Yeah. Afilo acherim only malgabo. Namilo, why not? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Reb Meir says, Afilo acherim only malgabo namilo. Reb Meir is so strict. Even if others are there, standing there watching, you still cannot let the idol worshiper give the child a bris milah. The zimnin dematzlile sakina umeshavile krus shivcha, because sometimes you're going to just tilt the knife a little bit and mutilate the baby. Yeah. Now, on this, that we don't allow the idol worshiper to do the bris milah, v'sava Reb Meir v'techavim lo, is that really true that Reb Meir is so strict? He never lets idol worshiper circumcise a Jewish child. V'raminhu, but the Brisa says, she'ein barofe yisrol v'yesh barofe kuti. So now, the city doesn't have a Jewish doctor. Strange thing. All Jews are doctors, right? Doctors and lawyers. Not in this city. This city, no Jewish doctors. Yeah. So the yesh barofe kuti, but there is a Kutian doctor. Once again, either Kutians were converts, not converts. But verofe over, and there's an idol worshiping doctor. So what do you do? So who do you choose? Do you choose the idol worshiper or you choose the Kuti? So Yimol obe kochavim, the al yimos kuti did Reb Meir. So we're going to go back and forth about this. Did Reb Meir really say this or not? But right now we're saying better the idol worshiper than the kuti did Reb Meir. Now, and Rabbi Yehuda Omer, oh why? Good. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer, yimol kuti v'al yimol kochavim. And Rabbi Yehuda says that no, the idol worshiper should not do it, and the kuti should do it. So before the why, just for a second, we see that Rabbi Meir allows the idol worshiper to do the bris milah if there's no one else in town, and not a kuti, and that's a difficulty because we just said that Rabbi Meir doesn't even allow it, even if others are there. That's the contradiction. Now, why? So Rashi points out because these kutim apparently had an idol that was found on Har Grizim, and they would worship it. And they would give a bris milah to the children to the name of this idol. So the idol worshiper is just, he does his own stuff in his, but to come and give you a bris milah, he has no other intention. he's just taking off your foreskin. But the kuti, we're worried, according to Rav Meir, we're worried he's going to do it for an ulterior motive. He's going to do it for the name of his idol, and that is prohibited. So, but now, so 1 second, Rav Meir, we just got stuck in a big contradiction. Does he or does he not allow the idol worshiper to give the Jew a bris milah? So now we're going to say epoch. You got a little bit as a hold cup in the epoch, so we're going to be epoching like 3-4 times. So right now we're switching. Really, Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda are switching. Rav Meir does allow the kuti to give a bris milah to the child and not the idol worshiper. This brisa is just switching. Rav Meir really was the one that allowed the kuti and not the idol worshiper because of our question from Rav Meir before. Rabbi Yehuda did not allow the kuti and did allow the idol worshiper. So right now we just say epoch. We switch the opinion. Rav Meir Omer Yimol kuti v'lo over kochavim. Rabbi Yehuda Omer over kochavim v'lo kuti. This way, there's no contradiction anymore. Rav Meir is consistent. The problem is Rabbi Yehuda. The sub Rabbi Yehuda over kochavim shapri dami. Rabbi Yehuda holds an idol worshiper can give a Jewish child a bris milah. We have a Rabbi Yehuda. The Hatanya Rabbi Yehuda himself says, "Minayin lemila ba'ovid kochavim shehi psula." Explicitly, Rabbi Yehuda. How do I know that a bris milah done by an idol worshiper is prohibited? Shinamar says by Avram Avinu. Hashem tells him, "The ata es brisi tishmo." You should guard my covenant. Now, really, the end of you should guard my covenant. Atov is arecha charecha ledorosam. You should guard it, and I think it sounds like the derivation is that only somebody who is commanded to keep the covenant is able to give somebody else a bris milah. But if you're not commanded in the bris milah, you can't give someone else a bris milah. So Rabbi Yehuda says, how I know that an idol worshiper cannot give a Jew a bris milah? It says, you shall keep my covenant. It sounds like only you are who are commanded in my covenant, so only you can give a circumcision. Va'ata as briefly, only you can keep my covenant, but no one else can keep my covenant. So now, Rabbi Yehuda we fixed Rav Meir, but we ran into a problem with Rabbi Yehuda. So it says they were ela la'olam lo table. So go back to the way we thought it was. That really Rav Meir sounds like if there's no Jew in town, the idol worshiper could do the bris milah. Rabbi Yehuda says an idol worshiper cannot do a bris milah. So, okay, but then we had a problem. Rav Meir against Rav Meir. Rav Meir sounded like even if others are there watching, you can never allow the idol worshiper to do the bris milah. And Rav Meir said if there's a city with no doctor, then you could allow him to do the bris milah. So the Gemara says, okay, that contradiction of Rav Meir, I have a way out. What's the way out? Next page, Hachamai Eskinan, Berofem Mumcha. He's an expert doctor in town. Now, what's going to happen? So, if he's going to go and kill the baby, he's going to ruin his whole reputation. There goes his business. You're a killer, not a doctor. So now, if he's an expert doctor, Rav Meir is going to say that he's not going to ruin the reputation. So now, Rav Meir says, really, the status quo is an idol worshiper cannot give a Jewish child a bris milah if there's no other doctor in town, and you have an expert doctor. So where he's not going to ruin his reputation, that's enough to allow him to circumcise the child. He also Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came Amar Rav Yochanan, he said in the name of Rav Yochanan, he said the same thing. If you have a mumcha, an expert, a public expert, who's very, very good, so then he's not going to ruin his reputation. He's going to be allowed to do a circumcision. Tosfos points out it doesn't have to be an expert. Just anybody who's in the business doesn't want to ruin their reputation, because then they're going to lose business. So now maybe you would think that he's not going to lose business because all the non-Jews will still go to him. Hey, he just killed a Jewish baby. Yeah. But it sounds like that would still ruin the reputation. That someone came from the guy died. So the next guy in line is going somewhere else. I'm not going to you. So, okay. So now we fixed Rav Meir. And Rabbi Yehuda is the one who does not allow an idol worshiper, but does allow a Kutian to give a bris milah to a Jewish child. On that, the Gemara asks the sub Rabbi Yehuda, Kuti, Shapri Dami. Really? Rabbi Yehuda allows a Kuti, V'hatanya Yisrael Molas a Kuti. A Jew is allowed to circumcise a Kuti, but Kuti lo Yimo Yisrael. Why? Mipnei Shemol L'Shem Har Grizim Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda explicitly says that a Kuti cannot give a circumcision to a Jewish child because he's going to do it in the name of his idol on Har HaGrizim. So Rabbi Yehuda does not allow a kuti to do it. So what do we do? So now, Amar lo Rabbi Yossi. Now Rabbi Yossi argues on Rabbi Yehuda, and he says, the assumption is that if the kuti does the bris milah on the Jewish child with different intentions, he's not doing it for the sake of the mitzvah of circumcision, rather for the sake of his God, that it's not good. So says Rabbi Yossi, where do we find that you have to have for the sake of circumcision when you're doing a circumcision? As long as you took the foreskin off, you're good to go. Goodbye. So, the way of speaking, you can go and do circumcisions until you die. Meaning he can go and he can go and he can go. There's no requirement that it has to be for for the right intent. Yeah. Oh, good. I was bothered by this also.
Usually intent is so important.
Right, but like it's intended, but for like, and if it's not for the sake of the circumcision and it's totally invalid. So I was bothered by it. I see now there's a long post about it. I was bothered by Rabbi Yossi is only bothered by what Rabbi Yehuda is stating by a kuti, who's going to do it for the sake of the idol worshiper. But the non-Jew, the idol worshiper who does the bris milah, he's not bothered by that. Now there are different halachas. It comes up in Hilchos, I think tzitzis, making tzitzis, things like that. That we don't assume that the non-Jew or the idol worshiper can have the proper intent for the sake of a mitzvah. So in this case, though, he's not bothered by the idol worshiper doing the bris milah, but yet when it comes to the kuti, he's bothered by where's his intent. So that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. So what does Rabbi Yehuda himself hold? If you need intent, it should be invalid even by the idol worshiper. And if you don't need intent, it should be valid by the kuti. So some kind of split. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Yeah. So now we're stuck. So Rabbi Yehuda himself does not allow an idol, the kuti, to do the bris milah. Okay. So now olam epoch kidabchinan mikara. Go back to the original flip in a Rav Meir. The original flip in a Rav Meir did not allow ever the idol worshiper to do a bris milah on a Jewish child, but he did allow a kuti. Rabbi Yehuda did not allow a kuti, but he did allow an idol worshiper to do the circumcision. And that which we had a difficulty, but the kakasha, the Rabbi Yehuda, then we had a difficulty with Rabbi Yehuda because the Brisa said the ata as brisi tishmer, only somebody who's commanded in bris milah can give a bris milah. So we said, oh, there's two Rabbi Yehudas. Hahid Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. That's referring to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, as Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi in the Brisa states, Omer minayin lemila b'avik sheep psula. How do I know that a bris milah for done by an idol worshiper is going to be invalid? Sounds like totally invalid. That you have to then draw some blood after. Talmud lomer ba'ata as brisi tishmor. You have to guard my covenant. Only someone who's commanded to guard my covenant can go and give a circumcision to the ones that follow. However, the ones that are not commanded can't do it, like the idol worshiper. So now, fine. So it's two separate Rabbi Yehudas, and therefore we got out of that contradiction. Amar of Chisda, my time of Rabbi Yehuda. So now, Amar of Chisda, my time of the Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda that once again, 1 second, Rabbi Yehuda, to get the opinion straight, Rabbi Yehuda says that, yes, one Rabbi Yehuda says that a kuti cannot give the Jew a bris milah because he's doing it for the wrong intentions. So what is the reasoning for that? Where do you find that you need to have the right intentions? For the Gemara, it takes a verse a little bit, and it doesn't say la Hashem himol, for Hashem's sake, you should circumcise it. It's a little bit, it's in the pasuk when we're leaving Egypt, and we did a bris milah there to enable us to eat the korban Pesach. It says there, va'asa Pesach la Hashem, himol lo kol zachar. So literally, you put a comma usually. Make a Pesach for Hashem, then make sure you circumcise every Jewish male. So, but here we're learning the exposition is la Hashem himol. You have to circumcise it for the sake of Hashem, and therefore, if a kuti does it for the sake of his idol, that's going to be invalid. To which Rabbi Yossi says, if there's another verse by Avram Avinu that has a double language, himol means as long as you circumcise him, he's fine, even if you don't have the right intent. That's irrelevant. Just all we care about is the circumcision part. Now, the idach, what does the other opinion do? Dechsev la Hashem himol. Rabbi Yossi, don't you agree? It says you should circumcise him for the sake of Hashem. Says Rabbi Yossi, that was a special stipulation only by the Korban Pesach when leaving Egypt. Hahu b'Pesach, that's written by the Pesach. That's not in general for Bris Milah. That's specifically by the Korban Pesach. To eat the Korban Pesach, you have to have for the sake of Hashem. I'm assuming it means meaning, okay, either means one of two things. Either it means in general, to eat the Korban Pesach, you have to have a circumcision which is done for the sake of Hashem, which would come at a very funny thing. It means that he would allow, or if you had a circumcision that wasn't for the sake of Hashem, it's a good circumcision, you just can't eat the Korban Pesach. So you have to go get some blood drawn. So that's like a funny thing. Just or it means it's the Korban Pesach at the time we left Egypt. Only then there was that requirement. I'm not sure how we go exactly, but the idach nami haksi hamol yimol. Rabbi Yehuda says, doesn't say himol yimol, the double language implying any kind of circumcision is good to go. That we say, famously, Rabbi Kiva and Rishon have this debate. Dibra Torah kiloshim le'adam. Sometimes the double language is not there used for exposition. Sometimes it speaks, so to speak, in a language of people, meaning it's more of a language that we can understand. That's how the Torah is written. And a double language sometimes is not used for exposition. Rather, it's used just as an example of how the Torah can speak more in human terms. So sometimes it will repeat the words because that's more of a human speech than, so to speak, godly speech, but not to be expounded. I think that's famously Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel have that debate. Okay, Itmar, continue on this conversation. Minayin lemila. How do I know that a bris milah that an idol worshiper, if he does a bris milah on a Jewish child, it's invalid. Daru bar papa mishmei the Rav Omar va'atas brisi dishmor. He says Daru bar papa says the name of Rav. It says va'atas brisi dishmor. The verse we just had. Whoever is obligated in the bris milah can go give someone else a bris milah. Rabbi Yochanan himol yimol, and Rabbi Yochanan says it's a double language of himol yimol. So, which is a funny thing because we just used that same verse to tell you that it would be okay. But okay, so Rashi points out himol yimol means you read it hamol yimol. The one who gets a circumcision can give a circumcision. So only a Jew who gets it can give it. However, the idol worshiper who doesn't get it can't give it. So now, Mai Beinayu, what's the practical difference between these two opinions? They both invalidate the idol worshiper from giving the bris milah. Mai Beinayu, Arvi Mahol, the Givoni Mahol. You have an Arab or a Givoni who are circumcised. So if you are circumcised, you can then give a circumcision. That's if you hold like the second opinion, Himo Yimo. However, if you hold like the first opinion, that only the prodigy of Avram Avinu, only those that were in the covenant and their descendants afterwards, only they are commanded in bris milah. So these Arabs and these Givonim are not part of that chain, and therefore they cannot give the Jew the bris milah. So noisy today. Wow. So the party we're missing. No, they're missing this party. No. Okay. Mand Amar Himol Yimol Ika and Mand Amar Esbis Dishmer Leka. If you hold Himol Yimol, which means that if you have a bris milah, you can give a bris milah. That's good. Mand Amar Esbis Dishmer, the one who says that only if you are in the covenant, then you can give a bris milah. So these non-Jews, the Arab and the Givoni, are out of the covenant, and therefore you cannot give a bris milah. Oh, it's very loud. Okay. So now, V'hatanan, a very interesting Mishnah in Nidarim says Konam Shani Nana Min Arelim. Konam is always a nickname for korban, and korban is a way of saying I'm prohibiting benefit upon myself. The way a korban is prohibited to use for other purposes. So I'm prohibiting a korban upon myself. So now it says V'hatanan Konam Shani Nana Min Arelim. I'm prohibiting myself to get benefit from anybody who's an oral. Oral means someone who's not circumcised. And yet, what does it say? Mutter. Jewel, police officer, thank you. So appreciate it. So V'hatanan, it says Konam Shani Nana Min Arelim. Konam, you make a vow that you're not going to get any benefit from the Arelim, from the uncircumcised. So who are you going to get benefit from now? So it says Mutter Ba'arele Yisrael. It says you're allowed to get benefit from the uncircumcised Jews. Even though you're prohibiting yourself from all uncircumcised people, but the uncircumcised Jew, you're allowed. The usser, and the other way also, you're prohibited from the circumcised non-Jews. Right? Counterintuitive. So, Alma, what do you see from there? Afal gav de mahili, even though the non-Jew is circumcised, but it's kiman de lo mahili damu. It's as if he's not circumcised. Because whatever, when you say, probably what it means that when you say this, you're referring to because the verse calls the non-Jews all not circumcised. So, I mean, even if they have the official foreskin to offer them, but they're not on that level as a circumcised person. And a Jew, even without the circumcision, but he's still in essence on a certain level more circumcised in his essence than the non-Jews are. But what do you see? Even though that you are circumcised, that they're circumcised, it's kiman de lo mahili damu. It's like they're not circumcised, and therefore it's a question because we just said that if the non-Jew is circumcised, according to that one opinion, you can give a circumcision. But now I'm showing you that even if they are circumcised, they're still not fully. It's not considered like they're circumcised, but they should still not be able to give a bris milah. Ella ikebeinai. Okay, so what's the difference between those two opinions? That wasn't a good one. Ella ikebeinai yisrol shemesu achiv machmas milah v'lo maluhu. What if you have the halacha is if you have a number of children, unfortunately, who died with circumcision, you don't do one to the third one because he might die also. So can that Jew give a bris milah now? The uncircumcised Jew due to his brother. So the man about this bishit tishmar ika. Of course, if you're part of Avram Avinu's children, then you can go give a bris milah. Lemandam or himol yimol. It means you have to have a bris milah to give a bris milah leka. Then you will not be able to circumcise somebody else. Ulamandam or himol yimol leka. Is that really true that someone who does not have a circumcision can't give a circumcision? The Mishnah says, the other Mishnah says, konam shani nana memulim. You prohibit yourself from benefit from anybody who's circumcised. So now it's the halacha. Asur ba'arei Yisrael. You're prohibited from an uncircumcised Jew. Remember, you're getting no benefit from the circumcised. So you're prohibited from the uncircumcised Jew, and you're permitted to get benefit from the circumcised non-Jew. Once again, the opposite. Alma afal gav de lo mahili. Even though the Jew is not circumcised, it's kiman de mahili damu. It's like he is circumcised. I think it brings a verse over there that Ella. So that's not a good example either, because even when he's not circumcised, he still is like he's circumcised, and therefore he can go and give a bris milah. Elike beinayu isha. I have to stop here. A woman would be the practical difference between them. The manu ata bris prisitishmar leka. The isha lav bas milahi. The woman wasn't part of that guarantee or that command from Hashem to give your children bris milahs. She was not part of that, obviously. Therefore, she can't give one. Well, the mandam or himo ika. The isha commanded milah because a woman, even though she doesn't have a practical bris milah, but she's still a Jew. And she's still a Jew. We saw from that Mishnah that even though they're not circumcised, but they're considered like they are circumcised. Okay. Phew. We'll stop. Try to get to the Mishnah, but